So this video is about the second song slash dance. Now, as a quick refresher of your memory, the first song is about humanity being umbilically connected to Mother Earth. This is before language, before thought, before all of that. Now, the second song is, the next sort of evolutionary step of humanity. And that's where humanity is still synchronized with the heartbeat of Mother Earth, but there are moments of desynchrony. And within those moments of desynchrony, the human identity begins to nucleate. And to represent Mother Earth, I had my mother sing this, song number 2. And to represent identity, I had her sing a song from the Ramayana, which is a sacred text that my family has been singing, I guess, for more than 4 generations. And so that represents identity. Now, to understand the full song, my mom and I did a video that I'll put in the description as a link. And in that video, my mom goes line by line and gives an interpretation from the perspective of this ceremony, which I think is really amazing. So definitely check that out. But as a very quick summary, this song that my mom is singing is about Shiv, who is a god. And, some people see Hinduism as just being a polytheistic religion, which to a certain extent it is, but it does have a very compelling monotheistic viewpoint that many people don't know. And from this viewpoint, the basic idea is that everything is energy. Everything is a dance of energy. And from that perspective, Shiv represents the part of energy where it's recycling life. You could almost call that death. And one idea is that life is just an illusion, right? It makes us feel like we're different than energy, but in reality, we're all just that same immortal flow of energy. And what death is breaking that illusion and giving us, again, that realization that, look, we've always been this energy. Shiv also represents this deep meditative state where you synchronize to the heartbeat of the universe. And he enters into this extremely deep state of meditation through the standard way, you could say, by sitting and meditating. But he also does it through dance, going into this deep trance-like state. And for this reason, he's also called the Lord of the Dance. And so that's why I use this song because it's symbolically and thematically very similar to the ideas that I'm trying to express. Now, for the drum beat, my mother played the tabla while singing, and I asked her to have a very powerful drum beat, an elegant and powerful drum beat. And this was motivated from music that I heard, Native American music, when I was at the Grand Canyon. And I often think about what is the heritage of the land that I'm on. And so I often think about the Native Americans. And so it has this very sort of mesmerizing, powerful flow. I also have my mom do 2 beats so that you have a heartbeat type of feel to it. On top of my mom singing, I have placed samples that I have recorded from around my house. So you'll hear rain and thunder that I recorded from around my house, and birds and crickets. And for the birds, I recorded it right at sunrise, actually a little bit before sunrise, right at dawn, because that's when they're very loud. And the crickets I recorded right around sunset. And so both of these times represent transition and therefore the new identity of the day or night. For the dance choreography, the most important thing is your state of mind. As long as you're in a state of flow, that's all that matters. And so in a way, everything that I describe next is only of secondary importance. And what I'll do is I'll show you a clip of the dance, a small portion of it, and then I'll tell you what are the lines that my mom is singing, what does that mean, and also the symbolism behind the different movements that I'm doing. And you can just use that as motivation. You don't actually have to do it yourself. Tail. First thing you hear in the song is the word tail. And what that's referring to is that in the first song, where I'm umbilically connected to Mother Earth, I'm actually umbilically connected through this thing I made. And this is from a yucca plant that was growing in my yard, and sadly it passed away. I knew it for 20, 30 years. And so this is the umbilical cord. And at the beginning of the second song, when you hear the word tail, I bring this onto the back and attach it to my backside. And you didn't see that in this particular clip because I had to figure out how to attach this. But the symbolism behind that is that humanity is going from an umbilical connection to now sort of separating a little bit. Then the next thing I do as you hear the nature sounds is I go into a squat. And a lot of Indian dances start with like honoring the earth. And so you sort of bow down, touch the earth, maybe touch your head. And I'm taking that and I'm modifying it by doing a squat. And the reason why I like the squat is it's very primal. You know, primates do it. The squat is also very powerful. Weightlifters do it. And then it's also very practical because villagers will do everything in it. They'll go and poop. They'll go and do work in it. They'll go and just, if they're chilling and relaxing with their friends, they'll do it because it's a really amazing pose to be in. What they translate to roughly is that, you know, we're bowing to the earth, we're paying our respect to Shiv, who is everywhere. Energy is everywhere. And the previous segment, if you remember, was that sort of honoring squat. And then in this, you know, as my mom is singing it, I'm beginning to rise from that bow, honor the earth, and also consume the earth as I'm honoring it, for that is what humans do. In this line, what is being said is that he, you know, Shiv, is in a meditative state, and he helps you go beyond thoughts, go beyond the state where thoughts are encroaching your every moment, and help you enter into this deep meditation. And this is related to the idea of the third eye, in the sense that when you go into meditation, that's when you can sort of open this third eye, and the third eye is the ability to look beyond illusions. So they don't directly reference the third eye in this song, but then that's the sort of idea I come up with in the dance, and I represent that third eye by doing this, you know, and then I do this. Look. In this line, what it basically means is that Shiv, like the sky, or you could interpret Shiv as being cycles of energy, like the sky, is everywhere. And so the way I represent that through dance is that I then, now with my new eyes open, start to look at movements all around me. The same sky that I take for granted in a way is sparkling anew with this new third eye vision that I have. Sky. So this sentence, what it translates to roughly, is that the cycles of energy, Shiv, is formless and beyond the states of sleeping, dreaming, and waking, that meditative state. Now, to inspire the dance pose for this, because I wanted something that referred, like a dance pose that referred to sky, which was in the previous sentence, and also this idea of being sort of beyond these states of sleeping, dreaming, waking, I turned to Susan, and Susan's actually going to give a presentation during my ceremony. And she did her dissertation work on this dance form called Cho, which is from Jharkhand in India. So she'll talk about that. But here's what she says about the pose. She says, this pose is called skywalking. And, you know, she feels that it connects to the theme of rebirth. And it's from the dance of Ratri and Chandrama, night and moon. And the theme of this dance is twofold. Of not being able to stay forever in this world, as the night must leave so the dawn can come, and also of creation. And Ratri is likened to the darkness which existed in the creation of the earth, and the hand gestures represent half moon to foreshadow the moon coming. And I sort of represent that skywalking and the movement of the moon by doing this with my hand. And that's just, you know, I just did that, but who knows, maybe it's legit. So I'm going to quickly show you how to do the skywalking pose. Now again, I'm not a dancer. I'm probably doing this 100% wrong, but this is what I know, or from what I saw in the image, okay? You plant your right leg, you bring your left leg up, you can sort of point it a little bit if you like, okay? And then you take your hands and you make these half moons from it. And then one half moon goes here, one half moon goes there. And I think that's the pose as far as I know.
Cycle.
And this next sentence is mostly just saying that describing Shiv is sort of an ineffable thing. He's beyond words. And to represent these cycles of energy, I sort of do this, circular 360 type movement, and that reiterates the previous themes of like sky and cycles. In this sentence, what it roughly translates to is that Shiv, he is timeless, or you could say the cycles of energy are timeless. And he is a destroyer of Maya, of illusions. And he has fierceness, but also compassion. So for this portion of it, I took the inspiration of my sister, who has done Bharatanatyam, and I've watched her as I was a child. And so her movements have become part of the vocabulary of my movements as I was trying to compose different moves. So watch this clip of her dancing and look at what's in the background. And then I'm going to describe the symbolism of that, and then that's what the pose is that I actually did, the pose of the Natraj. Okay, so the image behind my sister was a Natraj. And Natraj, which is this sculpture over here, is a form of Shiv. And sometimes people call this pose the Lord of the Dance. And I'm not a religious scholar, but I'll go over the symbolism to the best of my ability. So this ring over here is the cosmic fire or energy of the universe, and it represents sort of what the conservation of energy in physics says, that energy is immortal, that energy cannot be created or destroyed, it can only be transformed from one part to another. And so these are the cycles of life and death. And in a way, over here, this is a drum. It represents the heartbeat, the rhythmic heartbeat of the universe. And with any sort of beat, you have a sound part, but then you need a silence in order to be able to transition to the next cycle, to the next beat. And so this is life, this is the heartbeat, and then this is the silence that must follow afterwards. And so you could say that this is like death. And with each cycle of life and death, the cycle of energies continues, and you transition to the next cycle. Okay, on his headdress is a skull, and that represents the impermanence of life. Over here is a third eye, and a third eye basically means the ability to look beyond what your two eyes see. These two eyes see a world of Maya, a world of illusions. In some ways, because my background is science, I sometimes like to think the third eye is like science, because science is all of human knowledge since the beginning of time, and so it allows you to see patterns and connections that your two normal eyes cannot see. And he's standing on this little creature over here, this little demon, which represents ignorance. So here's how you do the Natraj pose, and again, I'm not a dancer, I'm probably doing this 100% incorrectly. So first I stand like this, I take my right foot, and I point it 90 degrees this way, okay? And then I'll take my left leg and just cross it over like this. I'll twist my body this way, facing you. And then I'll take my right hand, I just bring it over like this, and my left hand, and I just place it over like this. So this might be how you do it.
birth.
This sentence, what it roughly translates to is that he helps people go beyond the world of Maya, of illusions, to see beyond that. And I was thinking, like, what dance move should I do for that? And since the previous dance move was Natraj, and so I wanted to represent life and death, which are part of, you could say, the constellation of Maya. And so dance-wise, what I did, even though it's not like 100% relevant to this, is of birth, of the idea that a child has been born, perhaps into the world of Maya, you could say.
Ashes.
Okay, and so this sentence is about the idea that he spreads ashes on his body, and some of these ashes come from cremation. And again, the idea here is to detach yourself from this world of illusion. You know, death in a way is an illusion because we're all part of this flow of energy. And so what I do here is, the previous dance move that I had done was a birth. And again, to sort of represent the flow of energy in the Natraj, you have birth. And so I wanted to represent death, which is linked to the ashes that this translation is talking about. And so I sort of, represent like a cremation place, and the hand is sort of the ashes that are rising up as this this body is being burnt.
Skin.
This sentence is again just talking about his skin, perhaps how the ashes are on there. And so dance-wise, what I do is I take from the previous sentence, or the previous dance move, the ashes that had come out, I take those, and then I put them onto my skin, onto my body. Now the move that I do actually is, the inspiration for it comes from, I think, martial arts. I did some like mixed martial arts type stuff back in the day, and I feel like I remember when we were doing like the Greco wrestling type thing, like when you're wrestling with someone and you need to get better arm position. Let's say the person's like right in front of me. I think I remember this. What you do is you shoulder pop, and then you bring your arm in like this. And I feel like maybe we used to do like this sort of swimming exercise action as an exercise, in martial arts. I don't know. I kind of forget.
Hair.
So in this sentence, they're sort of talking about how Ganga, which is a holy river in India, it flows through his hair. What's also interesting is that after my dance ceremony, I do my hair ceremony. That's actually the rebirth part. And so I'll shave off everything except for a mullet, and I'll shave off the beard too. So the way I represent that is I just go like this, and this is sort of like the Ganga river coming through the hair.
Roll.
This sentence is talking about how there's like a moon in his hair and there's a snake around his throat, and the snake can represent acceptance because it's a creature that most people don't accept, but he does. It could also represent impermanence. I remember my grandmother would say that it could strike you at any moment and kill you, representing the idea that life can be taken away at any time. For the dance move though, I don't actually represent any of that. I wanted the dance to connect to the previous thing, and the previous thing was Ganga was going through the hair, it was falling onto the earth, fertilizing it, and so the dance move that I do is actually building off of that. And the dance move is breaking this earth, and the earth can also represent your field of dreams or your field of destiny. So I'm breaking that, and I'm planting my seed of destiny and growing it. So that's what the dance move is.
Impermanence.
This part of the song is talking about how he wears, strange clothes, like not pretty boy clothes, and also how he has a necklace of human heads or heads. And really those heads represent impermanence. Now, as I was trying to figure out what should I do for this dance, I had, also found this really beautiful thing outside while going hiking. It was actually in Lexington. And I think it's a piece of wood or some plant, and it's been bleached by the sun. It's just gorgeous. It looks like a tongue. So when I thought about the necklace of heads, what it reminded me of was Kali. And Kali is like, also this goddess. She's associated with Shiv quite a bit. She represents energy as well. And themes of impermanence sort of run through a lot of the symbolism behind her too. And so again, she's not referenced in this particular song, but because I had this cool artifact and I wanted to use it in my song, that's what I'm referencing.
Animal.
Priyam Shankaram Sarvanagam.
So in this, sentence, if you translate it, it's sort of about paying respect, sort of, bowing down. And the way that I do it is I do get close to the earth, but I do it in this sort of animal-like movement. And the reason I choose that is that these ingredients of animal, the next one will be Maya, and then the final one will be human. And sort of those are like the combinations, I think, that define different parts of the human identity. So that's why I sort of get close to the ground.
Maya.
Chidananda Sandoha Moha Bahari.
So in this sentence, they're talking about, again, how he can destroy this web of illusions, the Maya. And to represent some of that, I do my symbolic nasty pose. And my symbolic nasty pose is something I've been doing ever since I was in university at BU as an undergrad. And what it represents, I do it all of my major ceremonies, is, I get a big distended stomach, and the stomach represents fat, potential energy, dreams, And I look at my hands, which are part of the cycles of energy that represent kinetic energy, and I say, well, why isn't my hands realizing the dreams, the potential energy, through movement, through action? And I ask, why am I so nasty? And part of that might be because you're stuck in some Mayajal web.
Human.
Prasida Prasida Prabhu Manmathari.
So the last thing I want to do is provide a very quick overview, hitting the key words that you hear during the song itself. So everything starts at the earth, and from there we develop this third eye that allows us to see deeper, and we look out into the sky, into the universe, and what do we see? We see the cycles, and within those cycles is the Natraj, which represents birth and also death, represented through these ashes. And as this body begins to materialize, you have, the skin and the hair, and all of these things are beginning to acquire impermanence as they grow, as they live, as they die. And then, the final three things in the song are the components of human identity. The first is sort of, the animal. And I don't necessarily mean animalistic in a negative connotation, just sort of like pre-consciousness, whatever that processing is. And then you have Maya, which you could say is consciousness, is our perception, is what we think is reality. And that is the human. And the underlying question of this ceremony to a certain extent is, well, where does technology fit in to that definition of identity?